She was just the most beautiful person I've ever met, and she is everything to me.
Having now spent so much time with Kristy, this is hard to watch. I'm looking back at the family's first press conference from the Channel 9 archives, and my heart is breaking. Kristy's told me so much about this time in her life. She's pale, bewildered, and it's just a week after Rachelle's death. It's June 2001. There are no clear suspects, and detectives are desperate for more people to come forward with information. Putting the family's grief on display is their strongest play. So they asked the family to make their first public appeal, and the Childs would do anything for answers at this point. Graham sits in the middle of a long trestle table with his wife Anne to his left and then Kristy beside her. They're all holding hands as they face the media. Their sorrow, raw and visible.
Love our daughter very much and will always will. And if anyone's got any knowledge, to help us in our pain, then come forward.
I'm Ashlea Hansen, and you're listening to episode 2 of Dear Rachelle, a podcast by True Crime Australia. This is the untold story of Rachelle Childs, a 23-year-old who was brutally murdered. Her killer has never been caught.
The four of us were so close. I think this sort of a thing would either rip a family apart or bring them closer together, and it definitely brought the three of us closer together. But we kind of grieved away from one another. We would talk about her and talk about the case all the time, but being upset and crying and, we didn't do that in front of each other, which is interesting. If I saw Mum upset, that would make my grief worse, and same with Dad, and likewise. We just talked about her and the case and happy times, but we kind of fell apart away from each other. I was only 18 at the time and grew up very quickly.
Yeah, I can imagine. And did you go into a bit of a fog? I know you've described before that you don't remember a lot of that period after that, which is totally understandable. So how did you pick yourself back up?
Oh, I don't know. I don't remember that. Probably the next 6 months are very blurry. I was very angry. I was very sad, but I was very angry.
Rightly so.
Yeah. And I was an 18-year-old with attitude anyway, but I was just angry. Yeah, I honestly don't remember much. I do remember that day. This is horrible, this part. I didn't talk to Mum and Dad for a little while. I just sort of stayed away because I didn't want to see them feel that. I just didn't want to see it. But later on, I remember sitting on my bed and Dad was sitting next to me and I was bawling and he was cuddling me and we were talking about it. And he said, "There's more." And I said, "What?" And he said, "When they put her down at Tarawa, they set her on fire." I don't know how Dad told me that. Then he was crying and I was screaming and it was horrible. That's very clear in my mind. Poor Dad.
Have you ever thought, why me? I've lost so much over these years.
I never say why me. I just think of why, all of it. There's some awful people out there, but she was so good. I just don't understand.
How do you process your grief?
You never get over it. Never. But you just learn to manage it, and you have to get on with life because I've still got another daughter and granddaughter there, so you can't put yourself out there and be complaining and carrying on because it just brings everyone else down and it's not good for yourself. You've just got to cop it and always wonder why, and to eventually hopefully find closure. I don't see it as closing anything. But it's just satisfaction that hopefully we can find out who did this. I would just like to see a person off the streets, and I'd like to be in a room with him for 5 minutes, if you don't mind, just him and I. No rules. Yeah.
That's understandable. He's taken so much from you.
He has no idea. No idea, really.
Rachelle might have moved to Bargo for the peace and the space the small community offered, but the people of Bargo had encountered evil before.
The nation was shocked by the most brutal of crimes, the rape and murder of Bargo schoolgirl Ebony Simpson.
She was Daddy's little girl, 9-year-old Ebony Simpson. She was abducted, raped and thrown alive into a dam where she drowned.
In 1992, 9 years before Rachelle's murder, Ebony's innocent smile was seared in the minds of Australian parents. I remember when it happened. I was the same age as Ebony, 9 years old, and I wasn't allowed to walk to school anymore, like so many other children. Her paedophile killer, Andrew Peter Garforth, was sentenced to life in prison, and his papers marked never to be released.
My name is Mick Ashwood, a police officer from New South Wales Police Force between 1984 and 2010, a 26-year service. I retired in 2010 as a detective inspector.
Mick Ashwood recalls escorting Garforth to the Bargo Dam where he drowned little Ebony.
We could call a girl's missing. And that was the one case that I've worked on where I could say every decision from the top down was made was excellent. When the offender, when he admitted to what he'd done and wanted to show where the body was, so I just drove him with the others out to the scene. We found a body later in the dam.
Garforth was even part of the volunteer search group, pretending to look for Ebony before he began to unravel. Cases like that, they stick with you. And Mick would never forget when Ebony's family met Rachelle's.
The irony is that Rachelle Childs came to speak to one of the detectives training courses and Ebony Simpson's mum was there. And I broke down because it's the first time I'd put my head into the world of the victim. And so because, her pink lunchbox was floating on the water when we got there and the lights were turned on. And it was only in the 2000s, 10 years later, that it got to me.
Two very horrendous crimes connected to Bargo. How does that change your community?
Oh, it is a stigma. And people say, the usual thing, blame the media. Don't want the media in here. And I understand that. But it's the evolution of a rural area into urbanisation. Garforth was a guy who got out of jail, came over and started up a new life here and was just looking for another victim. It could have been any area.
And at what point did you join the murder investigation of Rachelle Childs?
I think it was about 1 year after the death occurred. I was asked by my boss to undertake an intelligence review and assist the local police who were leading the investigation.
And how would you describe the investigation when you joined it?
The initial meetings didn't occur in the normal way at a police station. They occurred at coffee shops, which was a bit unusual. They had 5 or 6 persons of interest, and how the position they were in, they were sort of stuck. My initial concern was after a year, a homicide investigation generally does not have 5 or 6 persons of interest, or they were referred to at the time as suspects. It's quite unusual. It's usually 1, 2. Usually that's the case, and that highlighted to me there was an issue, a fundamental issue with the investigation.
Rachelle's murder was always complex from a police perspective. They quickly came to the realisation they were hunting an extremely dangerous sex offender. But this wasn't a random attack. Detectives believe Rachelle knew her killer, and he was hell-bent on covering his tracks. Rachelle's body was badly burned, destroying forensic evidence. There was a lot of finger-pointing, and someone was spreading rumours.
Graham Childs, wife Anne and daughter Kristy last saw 23-year-old Rachelle last Wednesday night. The following evening, she was murdered.
To know something like that could happen here.
Rachelle's parents say their daughter's body cannot truly be put to rest until it's known who is responsible for her death.
We heard that she had been tied to a tree and set on fire and possibly tortured. That was some very early reports. Police were not sharing a lot of information during investigations. And that's quite common. They want to keep a few things secret. So these torture allegations, the tying up, it took us a long time to even have that dispelled, that she'd been tied to a tree. My name is Mark Murray. I'm the crime editor of the Sydney Daily Telegraph. You've got a small country town. They're very, very protective, those communities. That also made it hard to get accurate information. It also means there's a lot of pub talk, rumour. So getting to the truth of what happened or what was being investigated was really very hard, especially back then. Because in a town like that, you can't tell me that somebody doesn't know what's going on. That killers do share.
But do they always share the truth? Rachelle was popular. She had no known enemies. She was single, gorgeous, friendly, and maybe a little naive. She was only 23. Let's hear from her best friend Lisa and workmate Fiona about their final conversations with Rachelle.
I gave her a serving. She had told me at that point that she was going to a rebels clubhouse, and I just ripped into her and I said, that is idiotic, stupid, don't you dare. Do you know how dangerous that could be? Just ripped into her. And in my head, she was going to a particular clubhouse, but probably because that's the only one I knew of.
The only time she'd ever mentioned rebels to me was that she'd been invited to a party and would I ever go? And I said, no way. And that was the end of the conversation.
She kind of fought back a little bit, and I think we hung up on each other in fury. But she ended up texting me back afterwards saying, you're a good mate, Lise, and I get where you're coming from, but don't worry, I trust this Sash person, which was the person that was going to take her there, and I'll be fine. So I think that put me at peace a little bit, but also I was still 23 and fiery, and so I turned my phone off. I'll never stop regretting turning my phone off because she died that night and she could have been calling. Yeah.
There's only one person or people responsible for Rachelle's death, and it's not her loved ones.
Logic knows that. Yeah.
The Sash Lisa's referring to is Sash Milcharek Sr. He's one of the first persons of interest police explored. Remember, 9 POIs were identified and scrutinised. At the time, he was a senior member of the Bargo chapter of the Rebels Outlaw motorcycle gang, and he also owned a car yard in Bargo. You can imagine after Rachelle's murder, it was a pretty unnerving time for locals. Everyone was talking about it, and they wanted to know who did it. A killer was on the loose.
Green alarm external check.
Sash and other members of the bikie group were hauled in for questioning. Here's the Daily Telegraph crime editor Mark Murray again.
There were rumours that potentially may have had some involvement with bikies. There was suggestions that the Bargo had a bikie influence, and we do know country towns. Bikies, especially some of the lower members, they make their money selling dope, and particularly in those smaller towns like that. So there were those rumours that she could have been involved with the bikie member or just knew some of them, which it'd be hard not to, I suppose. If you're a young person, there'd probably only be a pub or two in town. So, and a rumour would fly. She might have had a beer with one. We did hear that.
Police were taking the rumours seriously. They were investigating whether Rachelle was involved with the Rebels Bikie Club. And was she selling drugs?
I'd never ever seen her with drugs. If she was selling drugs, she'd have had money. If she was selling drugs, she'd have probably been doing drugs. Like that, it just makes no sense whatsoever, and it makes me angry.
But it was sort of like a case of Chinese whispers. And, the rebels are known for not being nice people and for being into drugs and crime and things like that. So they're an easy target to point the finger at. And it's an interesting story. I heard someone say that she was dealing drugs for the rebels and she ripped them off. I can tell you for free, she was lucky to put more than $5 at a time in her tank at the petrol station. She was broke. She was terrible with money. She didn't have any money.
Let's explore those 2 points. Was Rachelle involved with bikies, and could she have been dealing drugs? First, Rachelle's friends say she'd been invited to a party at the Rebels clubhouse, but she'd never mentioned anything like that before, so they were shocked. And then after she was killed, a rumour has started that bikies were responsible because she owed them money for drugs. Police weren't ruling anything out. But let's look at the evidence. The autopsy results found no traces of drugs or alcohol in Rachelle's system. No drugs were found in her home, car, or any of her belongings. And when police went through her phone records, they found nothing out of the ordinary. Rachelle was known to ask her family for help if she was short on cash. So turning to drug dealing before going to them would be very out of character. And if Rachelle was involved with bikies and was in that much trouble, wouldn't her friends and family have noticed some kind of change in her behaviour? There are just so many things about this case that don't add up. Someone who's been helping Kristy piece it all together over the years is her best friend, Mindy Wicks. Mindy's a self-confessed sleuth with a sharp mind. She's consumed by Kristy's quest to find justice.
We do awkward well. See?
Is that part of what you love about Mint?
That she snorts. It's one of the first things I noticed about her. Like, that's odd. You snort when you laugh.
I do.
How would I describe Mindy as a best friend? She's incredibly loyal.
Hilarious.
She's hilarious. She's feeding me lines. She's, incredibly loyal, incredibly kind, incredibly giving, pretty fierce, backs the underdog. She reminds me of Rachelle in a lot of ways.
How would I describe my friendship with Kristy? Easy. Natural. It's just Kristy. She's the best.
True story.
Yeah. No bullshit, she just loves you.
That's true. I do.
It makes me angry. I just get angry. It's not right. It's 23 years. Shouldn't have been 23 days. Shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what it would be like to be in that position.
It's a shit position to be in.
It just makes me angry. They deserve it. They deserve to know. None of it should have happened in the first place, but to be waiting, not knowing is shit. I don't know how she does it. Like, it kills me. And yeah, I don't know. She is probably one of, if not the strongest person I know. She's just, I don't think she believes it, but she's pretty fierce herself.
Oh, thanks.
Good morning. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
You ready to get that in? Ready to complain?
Oh, always.
All right. All right, let's shave your legs.
I did shave your legs, yes.
Kristy and Mindy are going to have the words Team Shell tattooed on their legs. It's a tribute to Rachelle and also a symbol of their commitment to finding the truth.
We're going to do it exactly the way Rachelle wrote it, how to put it on this paper.
Yep.
Start that size. Mm-hmm. I'd like to do it a little bit bigger than you want.
Okay.
Because, it's something you don't want to hide. It's something that you want people to see. Is this something that Rachelle wrote? Did she write that down?
No.
They've created the design by using Rachelle's handwriting.
Did you put that together? How did you put that together?
She got in trouble with the police. She had a driving incident.
Yeah.
And she had written all over the statement from the cop with all these arguments down the side about how wrong he was.
The chatty tattooist is Sash Milcharik. He actually knew Rachelle. You've heard him mentioned earlier in relation to a party at the Rebels clubhouse.
Is it hurting? Oh, a little bit. It's not too bad though.
It didn't hurt me at all.
She's just saying 2 out of 2.
Yay.
Perfect.
That is awesome.
Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah. Won't rub off.
It's not rubbing off.
Doesn't hurt anymore.
It's definitely not rubbing off.
Ah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mum. Got another one.
Kristy is keen to speak to anyone connected to her sister's case to help fill in the blanks.
So did you buy a car off her or did she buy a car?
I bought it somewhere like her, the boyfriend.
Oh, yeah? Oh, like their car, not
I bought their car off a white Commodore.
In 2001, Sash lived in Bargo and he ran a business there called Sash's Used Cars. His slogan was, "Don't buy trash, see Sash and save cash." He was a well-known character in town, either through his car yard or through his membership with the Rebels Motorcycle Club. As you just heard, Sash had bought a car from Rachelle's boyfriend, and it was common practice to wheel and deal cars and parts between other businesses, which included Camden Holden, where Rachelle and Fiona worked.
So guys like me with smaller car yards, we go and buy them from the big car yards.
Mm-hmm.
Same as where Rachelle worked.
If he had needed anything brought down, she lived there. So it made sense that she would drop them in to the car yard, I assume, if he needed stuff for his car yard. So it wasn't unusual for him to call and ask for her in regards to parts, I would assume.
I only remember her, Camden Holden, trying to order a car for my wife. That's when I made the phone call that day to see that car come in. She thought it was going to come in on a Tuesday or something. And was it a Thursday? It was Thursday, wasn't it? Yeah. And then I said, she goes, ring me Thursday afternoon. It should be in by then, But it wasn't to be. This was the end of it. Yeah, and the young girl said that she left about 5-10 minutes ago, whoever was on the counter. Yeah, that was it.
That call Sash made to Camden Holden asking for Rachelle just minutes after she was seen for the last time would put him on the police radar very early. And don't forget, the Rebels bikie group are considered by Australian authorities to be a criminal gang, known for drug trafficking and other serious crimes. Not that we're suggesting Sash had any involvement in criminal activity. Sash says he met Rachelle through her boyfriend at the time, Shane Loates.
It was hard. It was hard. And everywhere you walked, and then you started hearing about people saying this about you and saying that about you and saying you've done this and you've done that. You think, how do you get this shit? How does this fucking come? Fucking blame on me? What, because I'm in a bike club? Fuck, we're in a bikes and chasing fun and whatever and drinking beer and, and chasing that dream, going for a ride with your mates and whatever, killing people, especially a woman. Like, come on. And over money? Please. No amount of money is worthwhile going to jail for, you know what I mean? Come on.
Yeah.
And I didn't need to have it.
And Rachelle definitely didn't have any money.
No.
She was
and the other thing too, I never been to a house, never even knew where she lived. I knew that Shane and her lived up Bargo, because I filled out the paperwork, obviously. And I knew they were locals because they would have said, I live up the road. But, that's about... I don't know how many times I met Shane with her, but there wasn't that many times, you know what I mean? It was mainly phone calls. Like, is the car coming? It was like early stages of it too. But yeah, she never, ever, 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 ever went to the clubhouse. Never was there, ever. And I even said to the cops, it's footage, take what you want, do what you want, do the DNA. And you got to try and help out, because the more you can help, the quicker this might have been resolved. But obviously it went nowhere,
Yeah.
They sort of knew where they were going. The cops knew where they were going, but I'm thinking that they had to eliminate all the other outside interference, which is probably what choked it all.
Yeah.
And you know that probably better than I do. I mean, you know the whole story better than I do. I mean, you only read it in the papers, and then you can't really take that as gospel.
No.
And I wish you all the best with it, and I hope this has made you happy.
Yep. I love it.
Don't get your mum ringing me, shouting at me. Giving my daughter a tattoo. She's a respectable school teacher.
I'm a school teacher. Yeah.
Let's break this down. In a chat with Kristy, Sash says he has nothing to hide. He's happy to answer her questions. I'm there and he's okay being recorded. But he doesn't agree to do an interview with me. He says that's because he doesn't trust the media. And he has had his fair share of news coverage over the years. I'm watching him closely, and he doesn't appear nervous in any way. Sash is emphatic that Rachelle never went to his clubhouse, nor did he invite her to a party there. But Lisa and Fiona both recall conversations with Rachelle about being invited to a Rebels party. Police never found any proof there was a gathering at the clubhouse on the Thursday night Rachelle disappeared.
She got along really well with Sash. She quite liked him.
And Sash was initially a person of interest, though, wasn't he?
Yeah, and I think because of the rumours about the Rebels bikie gang and Rachelle wanting to go to a Rebels party, which I've never heard her say in her life, because of those rumours and because of the fact that there's phone calls between them and things like that because of their line of work, I think that's how he kind of became a person of interest. Well, Sash gave evidence at the inquest. He answered every question. He said that he wanted to help. Nothing worth mentioning came out. He just pretty much repeated what his statements were, and it wasn't really anything suspicious.
And do you think that someone has used the Bikies rumour to divert police?
Oh, definitely. It's a convenient scapegoat because of the stigma attached to bikies and bikie gangs. Sash and the Rebels out at, Bargo, they've got a reputation. Even talking to one of my closest friends recently, they believed that the Rebels were responsible because of that rumour, that there's no evidence to back that up. In my opinion, fabricated. I'd be happily proven wrong if someone can tell me exactly what happened.
In the end, it was Sash's signature on a credit card receipt from a Chinese restaurant that confirmed his alibi.
And they still hounded and hounded and hounded. I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, come on. You're wasting time. I said to him, you're wasting time. Fucking hell. Get on with it.
Yeah.
Move, fucking wasting time,
Yeah.
And I remember I had cash on me, I sold all the cars, and I didn't want to break. And lucky I paid for it by credit card because I had to sign for it in those days. You got a credit card and you signed it on the white slip. And I had money in my pocket. It was an even number. I didn't want to break it. I'm all about even numbers. So I didn't want to break it.
Do you do that when you're turning up the volume in the car?
Yeah, it's got to be even. Yeah, I'm the same as when I tattoo. I've got to do it all perfect, and I'm very AC/DC,
Damian Loone and I have looked into all the persons of interest. Here's his take on Sash.
Well, clearly Rachelle was not involved with bikies or the drug scene. Sash doesn't come up on the radar with me. He was very cooperative with the police from the outset, and that's sometimes unusual for members of outlaw motorcycle gangs. And I believe that he's no longer a person of interest, and the investigating police came to the same conclusion as I have.
After getting inked, Kristy, Mindy and me headed to 7 Mile Beach to meet Ivor Davies, the first lead investigator on Rachelle's case. And you're going to hear about a crucial piece of evidence for the very first time: the tank. It's where detectives believe Rachelle's killer had intended to hide her body.
So again, when you consider the amount of Crown land catchment, but right there, so you pass all of that just to come here, from that white line to where that tank was, 15 metres. So the idea of concealment would have been in that tank. That's why the top was shoved off it. Everybody going to Shoalhaven Heads or the shortcut down the Narra. So we never had the expressway there.
And can you compare this area and this spot to what it was back in 2001?
It was much the same. It wasn't solid brush. There was a lot of openness like it is now, scattered trees. The lantanas all over the place. But it was more clearer. So just picture a concrete tank. I don't know how deep it was. It might have been maybe a metre and a half, but above the ground was maybe 300 to 400. And it had a concrete lid on it, about 1.5 metres round, maybe 1 metre. So when you slid it off, which they did, to at least a quarter of the way, you can clearly see the gate valves, water junctions, everything was close to the surface. It wasn't like a a 2 metre drop. So it's obviously, hey, we're not going to get the deceased in there. So I think in haste, they just dropped it into the shallow, put an accelerant over it and torched her. So the tank's gone. I'd say the waterboard shifted it.
It's getting dark and we can't find the tank. Kristy and Ivor are certain that we're in the right spot.
I've been down here a number of times. I used to go, I'd have to duck in under trees and there was a big round concrete lid on top of a pit. And I didn't ever know what was in there until Ivor's just told us that it was actually part of the water services down to the camping area, and there were water junctions in there. I didn't know what it was. But I remember in the early days, there was black across it, from the fire. So I knew which side she was on.
And was it deep enough to put a body in there?
Well, I couldn't see in it. And I did try and push the lid over or open it, but it was quite a thick concrete lid. It was quite heavy. It was quite big and round, and I didn't know what was under it. So if it was empty, yeah, for sure.
Well, what's your reaction to Ivor's suspicions that someone wanted to put Rachelle in that tank?
Well, it makes sense. And we've always said that it would have to be someone who knew this area well to pick that spot, because if you have a look even just on Google Maps, the scrub between Bargo and here, it doesn't matter which way you go. Why here? It's so far away and it's so close to the road. So it would have to be someone who knew that was there. So it would have to be someone who knew the area well.
Someone who did know the area well was Stephen Frank Fieses. His wife's body was found on a track leading to 7 Mile Beach.
The couple had been married for 4 months when Stephen reported Jodie missing in August 1997. A month later, her body was found partially uncovered at 7 Mile Beach, south of Wollongong.
18-year-old Jodie was murdered 4 years before Rachelle. The young mum was found dressed in her pyjamas, just a few hundred metres from where Rachelle's body would later be discovered.
My name is Dennis Siege. I was with the New South Wales Police Force for almost 20 years, 16 years as a plainclothes detective.
Can you recall the day that you were called out to respond to the murder of Jodie Fieses in 1997?
I can. It was a Friday night, and at 6 o'clock the very next morning, I attended the crime scene, which is 7 Mile Beach. It's like a lover's lane place. There's a track down there. You drive down it quite comfortably. And right at the very end of the track, there was a tree. And Jodie's body was buried beneath that tree. It was almost like the killer didn't want to forget where he buried Jodie, and he wanted her to be discovered.
What insights can you share with us about that area where Jodie's body was buried?
We ascertained that that was a common burial ground for racing greyhounds, where if a greyhound overdosed or, it was pretty dirty trade back then. And they used to cut the ears off and bury the animal, and there was quite a few apparently buried in that very area.
In episode 1, you met Carmen. She used to run the 7 Mile Beach Holiday Park. Its camping and caravan site is split across both sides of the Crooked River Road, within walking distance from where Rachelle's body was found. Here's Carmen again.
And then I remember thinking the next day about Jodie. And then because I thought about Jodie, and then I realised what had happened to Rachelle, I started thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to be one of those stories like Ivan Milat, where he took people to this remote location that he knew of, that nobody else knew about and no one could see from the road.
And she wasn't alone in her suspicions. Australia is a huge country, twice the size of India and 32 times the size of the UK. So what are the chances the bodies of 2 young murdered women would be found just a few hundred metres apart in a remote scrub on the East Coast? Were they looking for a serial killer? Here's Dennis.
Where the body was, it was set fire to just next to the highway. Again, did the killer want us to find that body? And then, obviously you've got to connect the dots. Was it the same person? Or did Stephen Feasis want us to believe that it was the same person? Or was he in cahoots with the person that killed Rachelle Childs and said, sit her in here and perhaps that'll throw the coppers off and they'll think that there's a serial murder? These are all things that you've got to look at. You can't write it off. Whether that's the case, who knows? But the guy that you're with now, Damian Loone, he's done some great thing. And I've got a lot of faith in Damian. And I think possibly this could be the break in the case the family needed. So if anyone can find it, Loone can.
Stephen Feasis was the prime suspect in his wife's murder, but police say there wasn't enough evidence to charge him. And now detectives are asking, did Stephen Feasis also murder Rachelle? On the next episode of Dear Rachelle.
Here it is. This is where the tank was.
Oh my gosh, that's it.
Here it is here.
So do you think the reason maybe the body wasn't placed in the tank was not that it couldn't fit?
Couldn't lift it.
I look at it and go, well, what happened to you in that car? Were you killed in that car?
The penny dropped that there was something underhanded going on. We just had to take that to the detectives. It was black and white.
Dear Rachelle is a multimedia production from True Crime Australia. If you want to be the first to find out what happens next, go to dearrachelle.com.au. That's where News Corp Australia subscribers get early access to podcast episodes and breaking news in our live investigation before anybody else. And you'll also find exclusive videos, interactive evidence, feature articles and more. That's dearrachelle.com.au. dearrachelle.com.au. If you have any tips or confidential information to share with me, Ashlea Hansen, please send an email to dearrachelle@news.com.au. Our supervising producer and audio editor is Reese Gunter. Rachel Fountain is executive producer and audio director. Our executive editor is Sarah Blake. Our senior journalist is Patrick Carline. Video editors are Gillian McNally, Owen Yang and Stephen Woods. Picture editors are Jeff Darmanin and Kristy Miller. Senior camera operators are Daniel Andrews and Oscar Vieira, with sound design by Martin Peralta. Thanks also to Greg Thompson, Eleni Paneras, Shoba Rayo, Faye Gould, Vanessa Graham, Hayley Goddard, Stephen Grice, Charlotte Karp, Tina Coggins and Harry Hughes. Special thanks to the Daily Telegraph editor Ben English. And Dear Rachelle would not be possible without the help and unwavering support of Kristy and Anne Childs, Mindy Wicks, Damian Loone and Rachelle's friends. This podcast series is hosted and investigated by me, Ashlea Hansen.